Hello, Ellie here with my sidekick Davi, and today it actually is still April, but it is April 30th, which means tomorrow is May, which means it's time for my April wrap-up. As I've been doing recently, I am going to talk about them in order of when I finished the book. Some of these will be physical books and some of these will be audiobooks. So again, when I finished it, according to Goodreads, is the order I will be discussing these in. First up, I was listening to an audiobook for The Problem with Forever by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I talked about this in my March wrap-up because I finished it on April 1st, which means I finished it before I actually did my March wrap-up. So I'm not going to talk that much about this one. I absolutely loved it. I will link to my March wrap-up below if you want to hear more about that. I had planned to do a book talk for this, but just due to my insanity, I didn't get a chance. Sorry. Next was another audiobook that I was able to listen to first because I was taking a long trip back to New Jersey for spring break. This one was Saint Anything by Sarah Dessen. This one was about a girl named Sydney who has kind of always lived in the shadow of her brother Peyton, who was kind of like the cool kid growing up, and that wasn't really her. Peyton ends up going off the deep end and gets arrested for drunk driving, and Sydney is left in this weird place in her life. She ends up switching schools, I believe. She gets sucked into this family where she becomes best friends with the girl and also meets the brother who she has this extreme connection with both of them, and it's pretty much exactly what she needs at the time. It's a completely different family environment, very protective. I really enjoyed that story. I gave it 4 stars. It's kind of a 4.5. I guess I didn't like it as much as I thought I did because I was actually struggling to remember it completely when I was just talking about it, which doesn't usually happen with books I absolutely adored. But I did really like it. It was really good, as I've been liking pretty much all of Sarah Dessen's books recently. And I believe I'll be talking about more. So, over spring break, the first book I read was 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. If you don't know, this book came out 10 years ago, and just recently there was a Netflix TV series based on this book. It is about a boy named Clay who had a crush on a girl named Hannah who recently killed herself and left 13 tapes behind explaining the reasons that she did what she did. I'm not going to talk too much about this because I did a video on it and I literally cried in the video I did. So I will link that below and I'll have a card for it right now. And definitely check that out if you want to hear my thoughts on that. I ended up reading this book in 2 days and then watching the Netflix show in the next 2 days. So I had 4 days straight of this story and it destroyed me. But it was worth it. I gave this 5 stars. It was phenomenal. Next, as I said in my March wrap-up, I was going to read more Jennifer L. Armentrout. So, over spring break, I started the Lux Series. I did the first 2 in audiobook, so I'm going to be talking about those 2 first. If you don't know, the Lux Series is about a girl named Katie who moves to this new town, and there are some weird dynamics in the town. She meets her next door neighbors. There's a girl named Dee and a guy named Demon, who I would have pronounced Damon if I had been reading it, but because I was listening to the audiobook, I know it's pronounced Demon. She forms an immediate connection with Dee and an immediate hatred for Demon, but there's still something weird going on, and that's all I'm really gonna say. It is a paranormal series. It has a bit of a Twilight feel in the first one. It goes away after the first one, but there are literally scenes that I could align with scenes from Twilight, but I did really enjoy it. I'm still working through the last book in the series. I'm not going to talk about each of these because obviously they build on each other and there are spoilers from the previous books for each one I talk about, but I'm just going to say when I read those. Does that make sense? Okay, yeah, so I read the first 2 in audiobook form over spring break. Also over spring break, I read Allison Eliza, which came out while I was on spring break, and I went and picked it up immediately. If you don't know that Hamilton is like a big deal in the world right now and has been for the last couple years, then you've been living under a rock. I'm dying to see the show, but obviously I've become obsessed with Hamilton. This is not like the show. This is the story of Alex and Eliza, how they first met and fell in love. There are some contradictions with the show. I'm not positive which one is more accurate. I feel like they're both partly accurate and partly inaccurate. In this one, Alex and Eliza meet at a party and things don't go well at first, but then they persevere and it's adorable. It's by Melissa de la Cruz. This is actually my first Melissa de la Cruz book, which is weird to say because she's written so many. I did enjoy it. I didn't love it, partly because I'm not a huge historical fiction person, and this was by definition historical fiction. It was cute. I enjoyed it. I got through it, so that's something. I think I only gave it 3 stars. But if you like historical fiction and you like romance novels, then you will love this. Next up, I went back to the Lux series, this time in physical form from the library, and I read Opal, book 3 in the Lux series, and that's all I'm really gonna say because I don't want to give anything away from this series. Oh, I should say what stars I rated all of them. I rated all 4 of these books 4 stars. They were very solid 4-star books. But yes, this was book 3, which was the next thing I read in April. The next 2 books I'm going to talk about, I actually finished in audiobook and physical form on the same day. The first was Lock and Key by Sarah Dessen. This one was about a girl named Ruby who has been living by herself for the past couple months because her mom just kind of took off. And she's been in an unfortunate situation. She ends up moving in with her sister and her sister's new husband, who I guess they're not newly married anymore, but she has never met her because she hasn't talked to her sister in about 10 years. Pretty much on her first day there, she meets the guy next door, Nate, when she is attempting to run away. Nate, it turns out, is going to the same private school as her and is going to be driving her to school regularly. It's a Sarah Dessen book, so obviously there's romance. There is the question of what is friendship. This one talks a lot about what makes a family, and I really liked it. I gave that one 4 stars too. I think 4.5. I am slowly making my way through Sarah Dessen books. See, I told you I would, and I am. This was my month of Sarah Dessen and Jennifer L. Armentrout, though I think last month was too. Next up, which I finished on the same day as Lock and Key, but this one in physical form, unsurprisingly, Origin, book 4 in the Lux series. And again, I'm not really going to talk about this one because anything I say will be spoilers for the first 3. I will say cliffhanger. Holy crap, cliffhanger. 4 stars. Book 3 had a ridiculous cliffhanger too. That one might have been even worse. I don't know, they were both really bad. And the last book that I read in April was Remember Me Forever by Sarah Wolf. This book I actually got my hands on early. It is coming out for re-release on May 2nd, which is 2 days away, and 2 other books I'm really excited for come out. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Whew, I just fangirled out for a second there. Anyway, this is the final book in the Lovely Vicious trilogy, which is from my friends at Entangled, which is how I got my hands on this early, and I'm obsessed with this series. I remember the first one in this series was the first book I received from them without like a specific time I was supposed to review it, and I was extremely surprised by how much I adored that story. And I remember just waiting anxiously for books 2 and book 3. I was so excited when I found this on my doorstep. I just read it and it was fantastic. I, again, don't want to say too much about it because it's the 3rd book in a trilogy, so anything I say will be a spoiler for the first 2. But I will say we returned to the characters that we absolutely love from the first ones. They are now at college, where they were in high school before, and they are moving on from the events that occurred in the second one that have left them very emotional, as well as things that we know from the first one as well. I gave this one 4 stars as well. I do want to do a book talk for this, but it's going to be a little bit tough with all of the other books coming out in May. But I'm hoping that maybe I can record one like tonight before things get crazy on Tuesday. So that was the last book I finished. I am currently audiobooking the final book in the Lux series, so expect to hear about that in my May wrap-up. I should say I started this month reading Strange the Dreamer. Unfortunately, I forgot it. I left it here when I went home for spring break, which is why I haven't finished it. And then when I got back, I was in the middle of the Lux series and I didn't want to stop reading that world. So that's why I'm like 100 pages into this, and I'm hoping I'll get done at some point. This might not be the best month because there are so many other books that I'm honestly a little bit more excited for. But yeah. I also, in April, was finally able to post my review for The End of Our Story, which I read in, I believe, February. But I didn't get a chance to post my review until April because it just came out this month. So I will link that below as well. I want to talk a little bit about May because I am so ridiculously excited for this month. So on April 2nd, Always and Forever Lara Jean comes out, which is the surprise third book in the To All the Boys I Loved Before series by Jenny Han. So excited for that book. And the third and final book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series comes out, A Court of Wings and Ruin. I am so scared and excited for that book. It will be the first final series book that we've seen from Sarah J. Maas. So it's a little scary, but also really exciting. If I get a chance to do a recording for Remember Me Forever by Sarah Wolf, that also comes out on May 2nd, so I'll probably post it around then if I do one. And then on May 16th, we have Seeker by Veronica Rossi, which is the sequel to Riders. We also have Flame in the Mist by Renee Ahdieh, who I love. And then I can't even. And then Lord of Shadows by Cassie Clare. And I can't even express how excited I am for some of these books. I am going to be a mess in my May wrap-up. You can expect a ton of videos this month because I am going to need to gush about these books that I will be reading in this coming month. Don't expect a ton of audiobooks because any second that I can be physically reading these books this month, I will be. That is it for my April wrap-up. I am, as I said, so excited for May. I can't even express it. Anyway, don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you like this video and click up here to subscribe. I will talk to you next time. Goodbye! Hey, Ellie and Dobby here. Like the video? Come subscribe. Do it right now. Click it.